well in this tournament. And then a surprise player, not a surprise to me because I've actually seen him develop over the years, is expert John Canessa. So he's rated like 21-27, but his mom told me the story a few years back how he was a baseball player in high school, and he got injured. And when he got injured, he wanted to take an activity that was a little more cerebral as he was kind of, rehabbing and getting back in. And he got into chess.
Yeah, I've never been injured playing chess.
Yeah, it's a little safer, but he took it seriously and has just developed into a pretty strong player because I think he's been playing seriously just since he was in high school. And I remember a couple of years back, as I think he just broke 2,000, and he had beaten an international master, and I'm like,
Ooh.
That's like an amazing result for someone that got into chess seriously that late, right? It's not like
Absolutely.
he's like some of these kids that are like,
Right.
2,000 at 8 years old or something. But he's having a strong showing. I know in the first round he beat Jason Liang, who's a 23-50 player, and then
And that was the end of him? Was that no? Yeah.
no,
That
he
was-
re-entered. He re-entered
Oh,
into
he
the
did?
2-day.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And he actually had an amazing result in round 4 that we'll go over. And then in the second round, he drew Ray Kaufman, international master. So he's having an outstanding tournament. So great for him.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Always like to see that.
And
Always root for the
perfect.
upstarts.
And
Patrick will get mic'd up.
he'll
and
get
join
mic'd
us.
up and join the broadcast in a bit. And we also have an AB combined section, and then we have a C section and a DE unrated. So everyone is battling out for position to get in the money. For this round, we have 9 boards in the open section that we're broadcasting, and on board 9, we're broadcasting the top AB section game. So we're giving that lower section some broadcast notoriety. Before we get deep into it, how's the Eade Foundation? How's everything going? You got a lot of.
Thank you for the plug.
You're not sitting around. You're pretty active.
I am. I'm going to silence my cell phone. And yes, I am James Eade of the Eade Foundation. EadeFoundation.org if you chess players want to check us out. I am the poor man's FM Paul Whitehead today, and I'm going to be hosting the rest of the broadcast. And Grandmaster Patrick Wolff will be joining us soon so that my obvious blunders will be pointed out to all of you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about John Donaldson. John Donaldson is the name on this tournament, this championship. He was director of the Mechanics Institute for 20 years, which is an unbelievable accomplishment. And John and I have been crossing paths in various capacities. He was a master before I was a master, an FM before I was an FM, and he became an IM, and he's now trying to become a GM, even at his advanced age. And has always had that kind of talent. But whether or not he becomes one, we'll see. And John started in chess politics on the executive board of the United States Chess Federation. And when he left, I joined the U.S. Chess Federation's executive board. And he was in FIDE politics. And then when he left FIDE politics, I got into FIDE politics. I was the zone president representing the United States in FIDE for 3 years. And I was here at the Mechanics, and then he came after me at the Mechanics. But I was here at the Mechanics for 2 years as the director, and he was there for 20 years. So that's about their relative playing strengths as well. So I just wanted to give a shout out. I don't know if John's watching, but I just wanted to say that I've always admired him in his career, everything that he has done as a chess historian, amazing chess writer, amazing. But I do have the luxury of sitting next now to Patrick Wolff, who is one of 2 living writers who has sold the most of an individual chess book of anyone alive today. And welcome, Patrick.
Hi.
Patrick is a grandmaster, former U.S. champion, and he's going to be helping me with the analysis. Basically, I'm going to be relying on him for the analysis as long as he's here.
And for those of you that don't know, I mean, a lot of people know that, Patrick Wolff is, two-time U.S. champion, grandmaster, but he's got some history here at the Mechanics Institute as a trustee and serving on some committees. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Mechanics Institute.
Well, so I live in San Francisco. I moved to San Francisco in 2005, but the very first time I came to San Francisco was in 1990 to play in the Pan Pacific. I think it was the second Pan Pacific Championship. And that tournament was sponsored by the Mechanics Institute, and it was the very first time I came to San Francisco, and it was the very first time I got to know the Mechanics Institute. The first time I moved to the Bay Area was 1999, and I was here from 99 to 2001. I was living down in Menlo Park at the time, which is down on the peninsula, but I would come up to San Francisco from time to time, hang out with some of the people here, chat. John Donaldson was there. There was a time when Alexei Malinsky was here, even Roman Chinchashvili. And so I got to know the library and the chess club, and I just had a really warm spot in my heart. And so when I moved here in 2005 in the city, of course I would come here, get to know, chat with people and so forth. I played on the what's it called, the teams?
The Pro Chess?
Yeah, it wasn't Pro Chess then.
It was on the U.S. Chess League or something?
Yes,
like that?
I think it was U.S. Chess League then, but I played for a couple years representing or as part of the Mechanics Institute. So I've been part of mechanics for a while, and then a few years ago, I was invited to apply to be on the board of trustees, and was accepted. And have really enjoyed getting to know the institute from the inside, doing some work to try to help manage the Mechanics Institute, and even actually served as the interim executive director for several months when our previous executive director stepped down, and before we were fortunate enough to hire our current executive director.
Yeah, so a lot of inner mechanics history.
A lot of inner mechanics history, yeah.
And I do want to add one other thing, because Patrick is a grandmaster of chess, and most of what I have been associated with mechanics has been involved in chess. But the Mechanics Institute Lending Library is a much bigger institution. And you don't become a trustee because of your chess abilities. So what do you think in your career has made you someone that they would reach out to become a trustee of this magnificent library?
I don't know. I may have pulled the wool over the eyes, but well, I mean, I've had a career in finance, and so I ran a hedge fund for some years, and I've had a broader career in investing in finance, which I continue to this day. But I think, Jim, you make a very good point, which is the Mechanics Institute is more than the chess club, although the chess club is a wonderful part of the Mechanics Institute. We also do have a lending library whose history stretches back as far as the chess club, 165 years. And it's a great library, and we also host cultural events. We have book discussions, intellectual luminaries, and various social and cultural events here. I guess I said that. But so the Mechanics Institute has a lot going for it. The chess club, of course, is the part that's the closest to my heart.
Yes.
But there is much more to it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Just the chess club.
Well, and we go back to why was it called the Mechanics, and back in the 1850s, the chess club was established in 1854 as the longest continuously running chess club in the United States. And it's what I call a rare pearl in the vast ocean of chess. And you can swim all your life and never see it, or it can wash up right at your feet some days. And when you live in San Francisco, it's right here at your feet. So we feel blessed and special. But the gold rush, if you remember, was in the 1849, the 49ers, which we still have in San Francisco.
And I don't remember the gold rush.
Yes,
Thank you.
good
Thank you
point.
for
Good
suggesting
point.
that.
Yes, not to imply that I do, but the 49ers came out here, but they needed mining equipment, and so the mechanics was what San Francisco was all about. They were supplying the mechanical equipment that the miners needed. And so it became, how do you become a good mechanic? And so being a mechanic was very much in demand. And so that was the genesis of the Mechanics Institute.
Yeah, and, when we talk about, the history and kind of the culture that goes along with the Mechanics Institute. And I think Patrick, really experienced this when you were the interim executive. It's, the different departments that we have, the library and our events where it has like a cinema lit evening and what have you, and then the chess club. I mean, it's really all connected, and it's all in service to the community and bringing people together. And I know what we do in our chess club. It has that mission. So yeah, we love putting chess events and having strong tournaments and offering variety, but we really try to tie it with the mission of bringing people together through chess, just as the library brings people together through the library and the books and the culture and the events department through film and what have you. So it's kind of an honor to be a part of that tradition in our way here with what we love to do is chess.
Yes.
So
how about getting
do some chess?
to
yeah,
games?
let's do it.
Yes, this is why we're here today for the Donaldson Championship. And on board one of the round 4, now this is a 5-round tournament, so this is in golf what we call moving day. You get yourself in position for the last round.
That's exactly right.
And so on the top board we have a women's international master, Rochelle Wu.
And Patrick, do you know Ray Kaufman, international master? Okay, perfect.
Maybe you could tell us a little about Ray. He's an international master, and that's...
I know he has a chair out in the room because I saw it.
Well, I don't know Ray that well, so I
Put you on the spot.
You know of Ray. Yeah.
I know of Ray.
Got it.
As I do, but I only know of him.
So Rochelle Wu has been playing strong. She was the only 3-0, 3 out of 3 player coming into the 4th round.
Okay.
Ray's been playing well. He had a draw with John Canessa, a strong expert, in a previous round. So now they're facing off on board 1.
Okay, so shall we just go through?
Sure.
All right.
Go for it, get into it.
So
I'm
I
gonna
guess-
go out there. I'll let you guys.
So
Okay.
probably,
Thanks, Abel.
Probably most people going through this know, but this is a very standard opening. This is the Nimzo Indian. White plays this
Classic.
kind of positional line, the idea of which, on the one hand, you develop the queen a little bit early, and it takes some time, but on the other hand, it allows you to win the 2 bishops without spoiling the pawn structure. So that's exactly what happens. So black has castled, black has good development, white only has the queen developed, but on the other hand, white has that dark square bishop. So here we go. I'm afraid I'm not really well versed in the opening theory of this.
That knight e2, I think, is a little unusual. Not
Okay.
bad, not good. I'm not commenting on its net worth, but it's a little unusual.
Okay. Well, I mean, at any rate, we can see the idea is, of course, to develop the knight to c3 at some point, which happens. So now white would like to just move the bishop to e2, but that hangs the pawn on g2. You might argue that that would be okay, because after bishop e2, bishop takes pawn, rook g1, you've got that open g file, and maybe that's compensation, maybe not. But at any rate, excuse me, white decides just to block the bishop, which is a perfectly reasonable choice.
I wanted to point out, Patrick, that the queen moved 3 times. The knight had to move twice to get to this position, so there was a little time factor.
Absolutely. So black has, so it is a good place to sort of stop and just look at the position for a moment. White just played bishop e2. So on the one hand, just as you said, Jim, white has taken more time in the opening. White has only just moved his bishop, her bishop, excuse me. She's not yet castled. On the other hand, then black, on the other hand, has castle, developed his rook, and all his pieces are pretty well developed. On the other hand,
White still has
pawn
the
structure very solid, no obvious open lines, and white does have that dark square bishop, which is a long-term trump. So if both sides just sort of maneuver around and nothing much happens, you would expect over time white's advantage would probably grow as white develops, consolidates the position, and the dark square bishop becomes more and more of a long-term advantage. So black decides
wants to
to
strike.
open up the position somewhere. Right. Understandable. So this is the first sort of big decision point. The alternative to rook takes pawn would be pawn takes pawn. If pawn takes pawn, can we make moves here, or do we just talk about it?
I think we have to talk about
Okay.
it. I'm not positive, but...
Okay, so if white plays pawn takes pawn here, Black would follow by playing d5.
Let me try, maybe. Nope.
Okay. So if white plays e takes d4,
Which would be my instinctive reply.
black would play d6, d5, and then at that point either white allows isolated pawn, for example, after pawn takes c takes d5, knight takes d5, or white plays b2, b3. But then the problem is after d takes c4, b takes c4, you have hanging pawns, which can also be a weakness. So understandably, white decides to take with the rook. Black plays d5 anyway. So again, black is the one with the lead in development, and logic would suggest that if you have a lead in development, you want to try to open up the position somewhat, and that's what black is doing. C takes d5, knight takes d5, and now queen d2. And the idea of queen d2 is if knight takes knight on c3, rook takes knight on d7. So black plays knight c5, threatening knight on c5 to b3.
Forking the queen and rook.
Forking queen and rook. Knight takes knight. And now black makes an interesting decision. To me, the slightly more, at least the first choice, I was going to say the more normal choice, but let's just say the first thing I would think of doing here is bishop takes knight.
That would be my first thought.
Both because it preserves the pawn structure, it doesn't lead to isolated pawn, but also because it keeps the bishop active. And if bishop takes knight, you wouldn't play e3, e4 because knight b3 forking the queen and rook. So unfortunately, we don't have a computer at our disposal, and we can't really move the pieces very well. So
we have the next best thing. We have Patrick.
Yeah. Well, so I'm not going to try to analyze this too deeply. I would expect after bishop takes knight, the next move would be queen on d2 to c3. Which does threaten to win the knight, b2, b4, because the knight is pinned to the queen and can't retreat to either a6 or e6. There are easy ways to meet that threat. But on the other hand, it also gets the queen and rook out of the fork and prepares white to castle. So maybe that's why black decided to take with the pawn. White plays queen c3 anyway. Now black plays rook on a8 to c8.
So I would like to point out one more thing, that the queen moved to c2, c3, d2, and then back to c3. So this is a lot of moves, and white is still not castled.
Yep.
So it's an alarm bell that goes off in my head.
So at this point, the threat in the position is for black to go knight to e6. And after knight to e6, forking the rook and the bishop. It doesn't win material because white could move the rook to g4, which would defend the bishop, but nevertheless would definitely be an issue. White preempts this by moving the rook to g4, so off of the d4 square, protecting the bishop. Also, there is a threat on the g7 point. So one could see, for example, if black were to play a move like h7, h5, just as an example, white would play bishop on g5 to h6, and suddenly everything's piling up on the g7 point, which would end very badly for black. So, of course, that doesn't happen. Black plays knight to e6.
Covering g7.
Very sensible, very straightforward move.
Bishop, yes.
Now, it's interesting to me, white's next move, I think, is interesting. I'm curious if any thought was given to playing bishop on g5 to f6. Which just somehow seems like a very natural move.
And protecting the queen on c3.
Both because it threatens the pawn on g7, but also because the bishop sort of connects up with the queen. But at any rate, white took instead.
Yeah, I kind of like that bishop
and plays
F6 move.
And plays king to d2. So now, if white could just untangle her pieces just a little bit, it's clear that white would have a big advantage here. White has the two bishops. White has a better pawn structure. Black's bishop on b7 has the potential to be a fairly bad bishop. But the pieces are tangled up, and specifically the bishop on g5 needs to be protected by the rook on g4, and the rook on g4 is not sort of the best place. And black plays f5 in an attempt to take advantage of this. Plays the rook to g3, and now d4. Very sensible.
Opening the lines.
Opens the diagonal for the bishop, and sort of unisolates the pawn on d4, so fixes the pawn structure. Pawn can't move to e4 very easily because simply pawn takes pawn. Also, by the way, if pawn moves to e4, black would play f5, f4, attacking the rook, rook to g4, and h7, h5, which would be even stronger because that would force the rook to move away from the defense of the bishop. So again, it's unfortunate that we don't have a computer or ability to move the pieces around, but this does not look to me like a good position. And if we just sort of scroll back a few more moves, like queen c3 is one place to look for a possible place to improve. I think another possible place to look to improve is maybe
Right here,
bishop on g5 to f6. Again, not so much because the threat would be that powerful, but just as in an attempt to untangle the pieces. That rook on g4 and pawn on g5 is not the best combination. At any rate, after king d2, f5. Oh, and I would say the last thing to point out here is white would like to untangle the pieces here, but the problem is black threatens rook to d1 check. It's not exactly a threat. White can move the bishop to d1, so you're not winning the rook on h1, but still, definitely things are a little bit sort of tangled up. Also, the rook might just move to c2 because the 7th rank is often a good thing to control and attack the pawn on b2 and so forth. That was the motivation behind king d2. Right. But I like this f5, rook g3, d4. Yeah. Very logical, making things very active. And it looks to me like white has a difficult position here.
Yes.
And in fact, this kind of fell apart a few moves later. Now white played f3, f4. One can understand the motivation behind that move. It activates the rook on g3.
Trying to hold everything.
But this goes very badly after knight to c5. That square on e4 is very tasty. It's coming with check. Bishop to d3, takes, bishop e4 check, and as you can see, it's just all collapsing. Yep. If white moves the king back, rook c2 check, and basically it should be lost at that point. Pawn can go to d3, the b2 pawn looks very strong, and so forth. King takes pawn, but obviously the king doesn't look like it's long for the world here.
It's exposed.
And rook ec8 is already threatening just rook to c4 check, king to d4, rook to c5 check, or actually maybe king to f7 first, followed by rook to c5, followed by rook d5 check. I mean, the king is quickly getting checkmated, and that's basically what happened here. Here, rook c5, and as we can see, next move is going to be rook d5, checkmate, and so white resigned.
Good night, Irene. Yes, that was that was a good example, I think, of black getting a development advantage and then cracking open the center to exploit it.
So if we sort of scroll back for look for places to improve, I don't know the opening that well. So there may very well be opening theory here.
Certainly,
but one place that I would be definitely looking is right here. Like if I were Alpha Zero, I can only imagine. I could easily imagine bishop e2 being a move because opening that g file, bishop takes g2, rook g1, bishop back to b7, bishop to h6. Black has to go knight e8. It's easy to imagine that white might have pretty good compensation in that position. Maybe not, but it's easy to imagine it.
Just for my own edification, would d5 be considered in this position?
Sure. So instead of f3, maybe white could play d5. I don't know. After pawn takes pawn b5.
Or I would play knight takes, rather.
Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. Pawn takes d5. I don't know. It's an interesting position. It's double-edged. I can understand why you might not do it because I could see how that pawn on d5 could be weak.
Yeah.
But certainly something to consider. In this position, after f3, rook e8, possibly white could consider pawn takes pawn on c5. I think that's sort of a typical idea here.
Yeah.
But instead,
then black has a central advantage as well.
Sure. But I think it's sort of
certainly playable.
It's a typical way for white to play the pawn structure here. Pawn takes pawn. if you play knight takes pawn, then bishop takes knight on f6 is probably pretty good for white. If you play queen takes pawn, then after bishop f4, black has to do something about that pawn on e5, and then white can play b2, b4, and kick the queen back. I don't know. I'm just saying it's an interesting position.
And f3 to me is another kind of wasted tempi. It's just not helping your development. But I understand the reason for playing.
So after here, d5, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. I think now is a very interesting point to look to see, like, is there some way to improve this? But again, I don't know the theory that well, and it does look to me like, white's allowed the position to open up a bit. So possibly here something other than pawn takes pawn. I don't know. You could imagine queen d2 here, for example.
It's opening up in a way that it isn't allowing white to exploit the two bishops, which is typically two bishops like open spaces. But in this position, they're not effective.
And clearly here, after pawn takes knight, this is a critical position, this is a very important point to start looking for improvements. The idea that white came up with the rook on g4 might work. But I think here you have to play something like bishop f6 if it is going to work. In this position, after f5, rook g3, d4, this just looks like a very, very nice position for black. All right.
Good. So let's move on to the board 2.
Oh, this one's live. This one's still going on, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So bishop g5, this is the Trompowsky, and I'm going to date myself. Back in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when I used to play chess professionally, Julian Hodgson was a British grandmaster, very, very creative, talented grandmaster who loved playing the Trompowsky, developed a lot of the theory.
Actually played in a San Francisco tournament.
And he always, one of the things he liked about it is you would always be able to get your preparation in, because after move 2, you were in your opening. So he'd go d4, knight f6, and even if black played d5, the same thing. After bishop g5, he'd get up and just go, got my preparation. So here we go, d5, knight d2. So this is a very typical type of position, a very typical type of trade in the Trompowsky. White's exchanging the bishop for the knight. Black has double pawns, but on the other hand, black has the bishop. So each side has his own sort of longer-term trump.
I know what Paul Whitehead would say. He likes the two bishops.
So White's play looks a little passive to me, but it's basically okay. Now comes c4, so opening up. So White is taking advantage of the fact that black is has allowed that diagonal has opened up that diagonal to play c4. And certainly this looks to me like a pretty good position for White.
Yeah, I was curious here why it's going this way.
But we'll see. And I think black has done something pretty clever here, which is, let's just go back a couple moves. So c4, bishop b7. Now, there's a lot to analyze here. I mean, just to give one example, d takes c5, pawn on d4 takes c5, to me looks very interesting, right? Because bishop takes b2, rook b1, opens up that b file, and otherwise, one way or the other, it's easy to imagine how either white would win a pawn or black would have some sort of difficulty with the pawn structure. But, oh, sorry, well, he did. So. Yeah. Knight d7.
So he doesn't want to play into that.
Right, so this is a clever idea to play the knight takes pawn. Now I wonder here what would have happened, for example, if pawn on c5 to c6, bishop takes pawn, or pawn takes pawn on d5, but instead he defended with the knight, and so rook c8.
He's begging him to take the pawn on b6.
And now black has done something clever, which is he's managed to open up the diagonal for the bishop here.
Both bishops have good diagonals.
And so,
ooh, chuck the exchange.
So White's decided to make a bet that the light squared bishop will be better than the dark squared bishop. That square on c6 will be very powerful, and so with the extra pawn for the exchange, this will work out well. may very well work out. I mean, it's an interesting double-edged position.
It certainly is.
So I like knight e4.
Absolutely.
With the idea of trying to straighten out that pawn structure.
And make him worry about the d.
But now we see pawn on b4. So we see this idea of how bishop on g7 is very nice, but it hits air, right? So it's not really attacking anything anymore. So if white can consolidate around that pawn on d5 and that strong knight on c6, you could easily imagine this actually being a very pleasant position for white. So rook to c7, partly I would imagine to set up for moving the rook to d7. There it goes. Bishop c4, so white is there in time to defend the pawn. Brings brings the bishop back. It's a very interesting position. I would actually say I think I would prefer to have the white position here, but it's double-edged. Either side could have chances here without question. Black's doing something very logical, trying to soften white up somehow on the king side.
Ooh.
You see how black is trying to create. So here we are now. Now we're actually at the game. Excellent. Okay. Now let's take a look and see what we think here. So clearly white's next move, one would think, would be rook takes pawn on a4, not only taking the pawn, but defending the pawn on b4 to some extent. Can black take the pawn on b4? Well, if bishop takes pawn on b4, then knight takes bishop, and this opens up the queen on a6 to d6.
The rook on b7 is potentially hanging too. So
right. So one possibility is bishop takes pawn, knight takes bishop, queen takes bishop, and then white could push the pawn on d6, which would be sort of very interesting, opening up that bishop's diagonal. The other idea is, you say, after bishop takes pawn, queen takes rook, bishop takes rook on a5, knight takes bishop. Now we've had a very different exchange where white has one material, but that pawn on a4 is alive, and after queen a3, attacking the bishop on a2, with possibilities of queen c1 check and pushing the pawn on a3. Very unclear what's happening here.
It's not clear.
I think we've got a lot to look at. Clearly a lot for Mr. Canessa to look at, which presumably is why he's thinking now. So let's see. Let's see if we can.
Yeah.
So other than bishop takes pawn, are there any other logical moves here? You could play rook takes pawn.
You could.
But then knight takes bishop.
And bishop takes.
You can't. Okay, so you can play bishop takes, but that obviously only white can be better in that position, right?
Absolutely.
Rook takes, knight takes, bishop takes, queen, bishop takes queen,
Yep.
rook takes pawn. So you'd like, after rook takes pawn, knight takes rook. Oh, okay. Very different move.
Oh, how could you get away with that?
So I guess the idea after queen takes rook is bishop e1 to attack the pawn on f2.
That's a good threat, isn't it?
So let's take a moment and ponder this. First, let's ask, after queen takes rook, bishop e1, certainly there's a threat.
Knight.
Queen f2, king h1, queen f1 mate.
Knight e7 check.
Knight e7 check is certainly an idea. It's the most logical idea, but let's see if there's anything else we can think of here.
Certainly pushing the f pawn doesn't work. Or does it?
Well, it's not clear to me.
It's not clear. It's not clear.
Certainly pushing the f pawn is scary, and after f2, f4, just queen b2, angling into f2 through the second rank might actually
hold.
Well, it might more than hold.
Yeah.
So after queen takes rook, bishop e1, knight e7. Now I would rather not take that knight. If queen takes knight, then you just exchange queens, and probably only white can be better there. If rook takes knight, then queen b8 check followed by queen f4 is tricky, but let's hold that thought for a minute.
Right.
I'd rather not allow that. After queen takes rook, bishop e1, knight e7 check, I'd rather just move the king.
King, yeah.
Like to h7, say. And that looks a little scary to me.
Well, Looks a little scary to me too. Then F4, but now we're getting too far afield for me.
Interesting. Now, the straightforward move here is simply rook takes pawn on a4. And if bishop e1, queen e2.
Correct.
And I'm not seeing an obvious problem with that.
I certainly don't.
Um,
Rook takes pawn seems like the safest.
Yeah, I
Surest.
mean, it seems like because now after rook takes pawn, you could play queen f3.
True.
If you
But then
really
queen
want to do
F1.
this, yeah. This is the problem is I don't think there's actually a threat, and actually after rook takes pawn, queen f3, you could play bishop c4, for example.
That's true too.
And if bishop e1, you've always got rook
Well,
a2.
After bishop c4,
The queen
bishop
d1
e1,
check, you have
rook
bishop
comes
f1.
back. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't have very much time to think here, I'd probably just bash out rook a4.
Yeah. Let's see. The time is.
But he's got a lot of time. He's got
White's
34
got
minutes
plenty of
versus
time.
less than 4 minutes for black.
Black has to. Can't take time to think really. Not long. He can maybe take a one think, but not too many. White can take his time. So queen f6 did not look right to me, but it is complicated. Rook takes pawn seems to be the simplest. Yeah, because queen takes bishop. Queen takes b7 is definitely complicated. So I think the safest and simplest is rook takes pawn.
Yeah.
And I just, because the rook can't go to d8 or b8, so it can't put pressure on those pawns. So those look like two safe pawns and you're a piece up.
Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah.
Rook a4.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was Black's idea here?
It might just be he was running out of time and he tried to hope
confuse
that
it up.
he would take on the
Yeah,
b7.
maybe.
Yeah. And this probably came as a surprise to him that he can simply play this and hold everything.
So I would say either queen f3 or bishop e1. But if bishop e1, queen e2,
And what are you going to do?
and the bishop just has to go back.
And that's.
And
yeah.
you know, the game goes on, but that doesn't seem.
White's got an overwhelming material superiority, though.
Well, I mean, black does still have the extra exchange, but yeah, I'd rather be white.
Well, you got two pieces and a rook, so that's counting the pieces.
No. White, black's up the exchange.
Okay.
But white has two pawns, and you know, it's not a rook position. It's not a position where black's rooks are very active. So, in fact, the best open file on the board is the A file, and white has it. So, yeah, black's used up a precious minute at this point. So, have to come up with something. And it's important to note, there's not really an attack on the light squares. So this sort of trying to go like h5, h4, queen f3, pawn h3. You can just bring a queen or a bishop back to the f1. There we go. Okay. So you could certainly see how there could be an attack if black can go king g7 and rook h8 and sort of like try to bring things around that way.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. What to do here? I kind of like the idea of playing pawn to d6 because you can't. I don't think you can take on d6. Queen b7.
Or even like bishop c4.
Well,
seems to
and then
hold.
queen. What's that?
Bishop c4 seems to hold everything. I don't see any white threats after that. And then you can. The rook is still under attack.
Yeah. So I like. Okay, so maybe d6. Maybe on d5, d6, queen takes d6, And then queen takes rook on b7. You've got queen d1, king g2, queen f3, king h3. It's getting a little hairy.
It doesn't look, yeah, it looks hairy.
But maybe black's got enough to draw there. Yeah, maybe d6. I mean, I certainly, if I were white here, I'd just take a nice think, which is exactly what he's doing. He should, because I think this is a critical position now. I think the easy move is queen e2. Another easy move is probably bishop c4.
I think that's the first thing that occurred to me because I wanted on g2 to protect against everything. But
yeah, and if queen f3, rook a2, seems like it should basically work.
well, queen f3 immediately the bishop to e2 would kick it out, so that wouldn't.
Yeah, you're right. That's absolutely right. I mean, bishop c4, bishop e1, rook a2, queen f3. But then I think you just can take that rook on b7. I don't think
We
there's...
have Rochelle Wu here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hi.
Ray Kaufman. You can sit right now.
So let's get back to your game. Hello.
Hi.
You don't look too happy. Good shrug.
Of course you're not happy. Sorry. So let's go through this. So how much of this is theory? Can you tell us?
So far, so good. But this
yeah,
is
this
this
is so
looked
far.
like an unusual.
I'm sorry, say again?
Yeah, no, this was theory.
Okay.
92.
Yeah.
At what point does this come out of theory? Do you know?
I think after d6, I just forgot what to do.
Okay. Did you consider playing bishop e2 here?
Yeah, but I've played that before and it didn't go out well.
No? Bishop g2?
Yeah.
Rook g1, bishop back, bishop h6, knight e8, and then what? Just doesn't work?
Yeah, I don't think it's good.
So f3, rook e8. I think instead of bishop e2, one thing we were wondering is d takes c5. Did you consider that?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's common in these lines.
I guess the thought was just if black takes back with a pawn on c5, then that pawn structure looks all right for white. And if obviously knight takes c5, bishop f6, and if queen c5, then you've got bishop f4, and then you can kick the queen back with b4 pretty quick, and that looked like that might be an interesting position, but wasn't something you were thinking.
No.
Okay, all right. So bishop e2. Did you expect c takes d4?
Yeah.
Okay, and then not e takes d4 because d5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so what was your thought process here? What moves were you considering?
I was thinking c takes d4, knight takes, and then bishop c4 at first, but I just forgot that after like queen e5, and then bishop takes d5, e takes d4 is also hanging.
Right.
Because at first I thought I could just go bishop f4.
Right. Okay, I see. Right. So c takes d5, knight takes e5, and your first thought was bishop c4.
Yeah.
But then after queen e5, hitting the bishop, bishop takes d5, e takes d5, you suddenly realize actually it's a fork because the rook on d4 is hanging because of now with the bishop gone, you've got the pin. All right. So did you consider any other moves other than c takes d5 here?
Not really.
Okay. Maybe move the queen or something,
Yeah.
d2 or d1 or something. Okay. All right, so c takes d5, knight takes, queen d2, knight c5, yeah. Okay, so
Now we're starting to get a little worried.
right. So what were you thinking about your position here?
I thought it was just kind of bad because after like rook c8, and then he has threats of knight b3 and knight e6.
Yep.
And I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. So queen c3
So
here.
when I would be looking for an improvement, I would be looking before this position.
Rook g4.
I was
96.
threatening queen takes g7 after rook g4.
Yeah, because of bishop
yeah.
e7.
I thought that was kind of funny, but
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, but all right. So knight e6, and now, did you consider bishop f6 here?
yeah. I don't.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
What's the problem with bishop f6?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
I just thought. I don't know.
Yeah. So okay, so if we scroll back
like it would
here,
hold everything for you. At
so
that
it seems like, so you think this is theory, and you're pretty sure that f3 is theory as well?
I'm not that sure.
after
I
Okay.
just know.
a6, she lost.
Okay, so after
But-
a6, you're not sure.
Right.
Okay, got it. Here, so one question is bishop e2, and then second question after d5, pawn takes pawn because your original idea didn't work. Queen d2, and then after this, you're not a fan of the position, but I think there's one sort of critical question, which is can you sort of untangle your pieces here somehow?
Because you're not that far away from consolidating.
And maybe
And having the two
bishop.
bishops.
What I liked about bishop f6, if you can get it to work, is if you can get that bishop on a more normal diagonal, and then you can figure out what to do with the rook. And then instead after this just looked pretty bad, right? After d4, yeah. I mean, obviously f4 is not good, but it's hard to see what to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And then there's no reason to go through the rest.
if I was white, what I would do would be going back to see where I could improve the earliest in my play, and at the latest, check out bishop f6, because then it's sound if what
All right, so-
Patrick and I think is.
So, boom. So this has gotten interesting. So h4.
Okay. No, that
He played
wasn't
bishop
right.
b3 instead of bishop c4.
Yeah, okay. That doesn't seem right because I want it on g2. So,
Takes, rook d7. All right, so what's the time control? It's you got to get to 40 moves, right? And then what's
I'm
the,
not sure. I never know the time control.
Really?
Yeah.
You're just that fast, huh?
40 and, or
Okay.
30 and 90 maybe?
Oh,
Game 90. Game
with what
90.
increment?
Yeah, okay, but there's
5
probably an
seconds or something,
increment,
10
30
seconds?
30,
Okay.
game 90.
So
with
that
some
would
increment.
suggest to me that from a practical perspective, I think black is basically lost. Basically, I mean, of course, it's not hopeless, but the problem with this position is this position can go on for a very long time. White will just always have some pressure, and black just has to make an
He
infinite
did get an
number of
increment,
moves.
so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what, but I didn't notice.
So
what
black's
it was.
idea, of course, is to go rook h8 and queen f3, but white has plenty of ways to stop that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so you're still up the exchange, but you got 2 pawns forward. They're passed. They're not under any danger of being taken.
What would you play here for white?
Rook a6. And then after rook d6, rook a7.
Oh, so after rook a6, what if black plays? So yeah, black's tied up a bit, huh? Because queen f3 allows queen takes bishop.
And my threat's knight d4.
So after rook a6, maybe bishop e1, then queen e2. I guess you can just go back bishop c3, huh? But then you can move the knight.
Knight
somewhere.
b8.
Yeah, good point.
Ooh.
You got rook d6, but yeah, I agree.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's, yeah. Instead of knight b8, maybe just knight, well, your point, like knight d4, right?
94 seems.
Um,
Well, can you?
or
well,
frankly, you could
or-
have just played b5. I mean,
Yeah.
right? Why not? Yeah,
That's
black's-
always possible.
I like rook a6. Activate the rook. No reason to defend the pawn anymore, and everything's all tied up. Queen f3, queen takes bishop check. Rook h8, queen takes e4. And it also forces black to play a move, which is nice.
Yeah.
No, sort of obvious. Okay.
I sure don't see any real problem with just being fine.
And then I don't know how was he third?
So that's why he played bishop to b3, so he can play queen to c4, which is also a good idea. I still wanted bc4 to bf1 to hold everything. But this is, certainly looks like white has got the advantage.
Are there any other games to check out at the moment?
Oh yeah, sure, sorry.
Any other live games?
Yeah,
Jason game was actually really interesting.
Jason's game.
It
Okay.
was very interesting.
All right, let's check this out.
Take a, so we'll go back to the other game in a minute.
Another French player, like it already, okay, but
I've never really understood the appeal of this line for black, but okay. I've always thought like you're just giving up all this material for cheapos.
well, I don't like the way it's going.
Yeah, so obviously we're
But-
zipping through this, but the point
Yeah.
just being, you know, white's got the two bishops, white has extra pawns, so black is just trying to sort of attack white's position somehow.
I always played the McCutcheon, so I never went into this stuff either. And
Bishop e4, and castle's queenside. And now black has to
I don't like it.
go somewhere.
What? Why did you pick queen d4? Okay.
Sweet. So I think white's somehow gotten a little bit too cute.
I think so too. So why not just take the c pawn?
Well,
Oh,
you don't
F
take the c
pawn.
pawn because the queen takes f4, but
Yeah.
why not take the b
Yeah.
pawn?
Same problem though, right?
Sorry?
Or oh no.
Bishop
Sorry.
takes b7?
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, I was 2 moves ahead when you mentioned.
All right, but
Yeah.
anyway, so queen d4 takes. Here, rook g1. Of course, if the queen moves, rook g8, but instead bishop b5. That's very funny. So rook takes queen, rook g1 mate. White's going to go like, what, bishop c6 or something? Takes. I mean, black's got draw if he wants it, but
What about bishop takes b7?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Because that's got some point to it, anyways. And I don't see.
Yeah, bishop b7 just threatens bishop c6, right?
Right.
So if rook b8, that doesn't work because then you can take the queen. Yeah, well, I have to agree. Bishop b7 makes sense. Yeah, all right.
Now, yeah, I think that was.
Queen
no
a4
decide.
defends the bishop.
Wait, rook g8, queen d6, rook takes d8, bishop takes b7.
Oh, and then it's
That's over.
and then it's over because of bishop b7. Yeah. Yep. All right. Well,
Huh.
let's go back to the live game.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I'll help you there. Okay.
Nothing's happening. Chess is boring.
Spoken like a man of finance. Okay. Now, so maybe there's something else to look at, huh? While we're waiting. This was a half.
Well, let's look at the
This is a
Das
win.
Dixit game.
Okay.
1 up.
Okay.
1 up.
Take us out.
1 up. 1 up. 1 up.
1 up. Oh, sorry. I'll do it. This one. Okay.
All right. So this one's live.
Interesting. This is the London system, Dutch defense against the London system.
Black doesn't like doubling those pawns. I would play knight takes c3, but okay.
Yeah. See, I play this kind of stuff a lot, and I'm already happy. White.
Yeah, the rook on b7. No bueno. Okay.
Really?
Ooh. Not pawn takes pawn on b5 and then take the a file?
I would. I wouldn't do that. That frees your rook on with P and shadowed rook.
Ugh, well, whatever. This just looks boring. Rook b e8, and whatever.
Okay. White is slow on. Not in time trouble, but in time pressure.
Yeah.
So
I guess black can go rook e4, right?
sure.
Well, as far as I can tell, black can't be worse because if black just goes rook e4, I think rook f5, rook c4 should be good for black, right? Weak a pawn.
Well,
I don't see what white's doing.
I don't see why white would be.
So if after rook e4, rook c1, g6, I don't know.
Well, I would put my rook on d4, king f1, king e2. You know, I don't see how black makes progress.
I'd rather have black than white, but yeah, I agree. This is kind of boring. All right, let's go back to the other live game. Let's see what's going on here. Aha! So what happened here? So did not play your move of rook a6, though. I think it's a good one. Played this, threatening something that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Okay.
Rook c2. And then king f1.
Ooh, I see what you're going at. Or that. That looks rough, too. Although you could play queen a8, a1.
I'm not a huge fan of this move just because I like the a file, but whatever. Bishop c3, right?
Well, queen a1 is also possible, but I'm not a fan of it. I just think that because if bishop c3, then rook c2 does make
No,
progress.
queen a1 loses, right? Queen d4 check.
Whoa.
Well, the idea here is rook takes bishop, rook h8, right?
Correct.
So
Huh. And he's going to play rook e8 anyways, right?
now you could just go rook takes bishop. Oh no, because queen d4 check f6. Never mind. Yeah, that's a problem.
I think white got a little sloppy here.
Yeah. Well, knight d4, right? And then if bishop takes pawn, rook takes bishop, rook g3 check, king f1.
Rook h8.
Yeah.
It's not
A little
that
on the
happy.
scary side.
Well, you can. Yeah. It's not clear to me. Okay, let's think. That doesn't help either, does it?
Now after queen takes g3, could you go? Oh wait, never mind.
Never should have allowed queen e2. Queen f3, sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, well, rook e2 is just a terrible
Not a
move,
good move.
right? I mean, there's a lot of better moves here.
Right.
King f1, for example, has
Right.
got to be a better move. Queen d4, even.
Queen d4. That's hard to argue with.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. Kind of an interesting position. Yeah, but I'm willing to give that up to jam those pawns. But yeah, it's a mess.
Thank you, Rochelle. I have a very, very special guest here.
Oh,
Very special guest.
we do enjoy special guests.
Knight d4, and did not play bishop f2 check. Interesting.
Actually, you're going over her son's game right now.
Oh, no kidding. What side is your son
Please.
playing? What side is your son playing?
He's
White or black?
Black.
Black. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. We were just talking about this having a good tournament.
tricky.
I just got
Kate Knessa, Kate.
Okay.
So I was mentioning.
So, okay, rook takes bishop, rook h8, king f1.
H3, is that? No, that's not possible either.
I'm not getting this.
I'm not getting it
rook takes
either.
bishop, rook h8, king f1. Now, for sure, you're a little frozen,
Yeah.
but there's no threat. Queen g4, that's the idea. Okay.
Queen.
Rook takes bishop,
This is deep.
rook takes bishop, rook h8, king f1, queen g4, threatening rook h1.
What does it
But
look
you
like
can
right
play
here?
Queen g4. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Now,
I see what you're saying. That is interesting.
It looked for a while. Black might have had a little advantage. What does it look like now?
well, white was much better, but got tricked and could be in a lot of trouble here.
Interesting. While Kate is here, I just wanted to mention because I had started the broadcast saying how
Well, you can play
how John was
even king g2.
into chess.
No, queen h6.
Queen. No, because.
No, they're deeply obsessed into the game, right?
H.
now I'm intrigued now. As well.
What are you looking at? Rook takes
King
bishop.
g2.
Whose
King
move is
g2
it?
here.
Yes.
It's White's move.
White's move.
'cause when-
Could white go
And
queen
rook
to
takes.
c7?
Queen h3.
I mean,
queen
no,
h1.
no, queen
Definitely
to
not.
no queen to
Takes.
c6.
Six.
Takes.
Okay, so let's
What
break
if white
for-
goes queen to c6?
What's that?
What if white goes queen to c6?
Well, we're worried about
Queen to
rook
c6.
rook to h8.
Oh yeah, the rook to h8.
Yeah.
And then the black queen will be threatening checkmate on h1.
Yeah, and
And
if
there's, like,
96
no checks.
check.
Uh,
No, there's always some 96 check trick in
That's
here. So
true,
queen
too.
c6. Queen c6 is a thought.
Oh,
is
this,
way
this is
better.
complex.
96 is a
Well, it's
threat.
complex because even they're trying to figure it out.
But if queen
They're
c6, I
grandmaster-
think
grandmaster
like
and
black
FIDE
just
master.
moves like.
But where? Yeah, it's not.
Well, black
You
could.
can't cut the h file.
What?
You can't cover the h file.
And time is an issue. It's good. Looks like John's got like a minute 13 on his clock too.
Yes.
He's
yes,
good under time pressure.
And do you have the increment? What's the increment?
30 seconds.
Oh,
Oh yeah, they can make it last for half an hour.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it.
Uh-huh. So this is common for John to kind of work the time down and
So okay, so rook takes bishop, rook
You'll
h8,
think it through.
96 check,
and just
pawn
look at
takes
all the
knight, queen
possibilities.
takes pawn.
he has it in his head that he's got to move it.
That's sweet.
Right?
That does look.
And now Black's thinking on White's time too.
That does look.
You
like
have to go rook h8 because white threatens to
Yeah.
consolidate with queen f1, queen g2. So rook takes bishop, rook h8, knight e6 check. You gotta take.
Got it.
You could throw a check in if you want, queen d4 check, which might not be bad actually, because wherever you put the king might actually be
Worse than
worse.
g7.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting because White can't just take the bishop, right?
No, well, that's what we're looking at. I think white can take the bishop.
Because we're trying to figure out a way to cover the h1 square,
Right.
in which we can, apparently. Unless rook takes knight instead of bishop pawn takes.
No, the rook's on h8 after rook takes bishop,
But
rook
great.
h8.
That's right.
So,
I gotta think 2 moves in advance. Jeez, pressure.
yeah.
Okay, rook takes, rook h8,
Now,
knight checks.
that position might just be a draw. Rook bishop, rook takes bishop, rook h8, knight e6, fe.
But I'm
Queen
thinking
Yeah, now maybe queen
If the rook
d4
takes
check.
bishop,
Let's just sort of
okay,
hold that
all right.
Then the rook
thought in our
goes
heads
over
for a
to
sec.
h8.
But queen takes pawn.
Right.
You've got queen
King
h2,
goes
king
to
f1,
yeah,
queen
king goes to
h1, right?
No, because queen's on d.
And then how do
e4.
you?
No.
Oh, you're saying take
Queen
takes.
h2, king f1, queen h1, takes, king
King.
e2, takes, right? Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. Okay, so he wants to go bishop takes pawn. Got it.
Oh, wow. So bishop c2 was played.
Yeah. Fascinating. I think white had a much easier way to play this, but even so, it's produced,
Well, but it might-
it's
but-
produced a very interesting position, which is what I'm into. Yeah.
There it
So
is.
now bishop takes is forced, right?
Bishop takes is definitely forced.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yep. Because now it covers the h1.
Okay. So,
Wow.
And
And
then
then
there's a different way route to bishop to
queen
d2,
h2,
which I
king
think holds.
f1. Jesus, like whoa.
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah.
There's no immediate.
Well, I assume bishop f2, right?
Well,
Rook f2, queen
Right.
g3.
Yeah.
right. But can't you just run away?
Sure.
Queen h3.
King e2.
And then king e2. We took the pawn instead.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just run away.
repercussions.
And now this is so much more simplified, right?
This looks like it should be winning for white.
King e.
I just think after bishop c2, I'm not sure rook h8 was the right move. There should have been some way to defend that pawn on e4. But whatever.
And then with the rook a7.
Yeah. But you know, it's still pretty
really
wild.
Really pretty interesting. I think white's solid now, but you know, I've been wrong before. And
Is that right?
this is
I play queen c3 here. Line up against.
queen c3.
Whoa.
Oh, he's going for the win immediately. Pawn takes knight, rook g2. Okay. I guess that works.
Oh, can't he capture the rook now? No, of course not.
Oh, yep.
No.
Yep.
There it is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Check and run away, or check. And
Rook h1, check king e2,
and
rook h2.
h2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about rook to h1?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what we're saying. Rook h1, king
Yeah.
e2, rook
Wow,
h2.
look at this.
Yeah, I blundered.
Yeah.
Derek blundered.
And I don't think.
I think
there's
John
any
would have
G
had to
going
have seen
there.
it all the way, right?
Yeah, but I think if queen c3, that position should just be winning for white.
Yeah. Or even king e2 in that position. It's like that.
But I think
holds
no,
here.
but I think queen c3 is a better move.
Okay.
Because it lined
yeah,
up against
yeah,
the king.
True. True. That's
There's no
true.
reason to go on defense.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a move.
And he's got plenty of time.
And then the rook can't capture
Yeah.
the queen
Yeah.
because it's pinned.
Right.
Good night, Irene.
Wow. For John?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, black
Yeah.
wins now.
Wow.
You can throw
Exciting
a queen
stuff.
c3 check.
Very
Very
exciting
hard
and in
to
time
stop it.
pressure. And in time pressure too.
And he's got plenty of time now.
Yeah.
2 minutes is
It's-
plenty of time to play
Yeah.
this.
The
That's
increment.
all
Wow.
she wrote for
That
that game.
he has to.
Congratulations to John.
He has.
Derek screwed up. Like with all that
Yes,
time to
yes,
play a blunder
that's
like
too
that.
Bad.
That's terrible.
On site, you see that
Well,
that
it's too bad. He had plenty of time.
rook g2, and it just looks.
All right,
Yeah.
so what else have we got?
But that's
Wow.
a little superficial, unfortunately.
Okay.
So let me get Kate on and just talk about. So John is a
Oh, this is changed.
sophomore,
He's a freshman in college.
a freshman in college, but he's
Makes no
but
sense
he's
to
finishing
me
his
what
first
has
year.
happened.
He just finished his first quarter.
Hey Jim,
Yeah.
we're doing
Sorry.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So John is a freshman in college at Santa Clara University.
Yes.
Yeah.
So does he know what he wants to do?
He
with it?
loves mathematics and sciences, so he's still
So he's a
debating
math
computer
guy.
science.
So he's a math guy.
He's
Damn.
debating about what is his true passion and which way he wants
When
to
did
go.
you first start playing chess?
When he was 5.
Oh.
Yeah, and then he took a big break for
Uh-huh.
baseball because he was involved with community baseball and club
Yeah.
baseball for many years. My husband was a coach, and so John did that.
But-
And
But did he
Then he
break?
went back.
Did he break out in chess like in high school, or was he kind of on the rise before
no,
he took?
he was nationally ranked when he was 7 years old.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
I thought it was
For
like in
his
high
age group.
school. Yeah, yeah.
No, he was nationally ranked, and then he just
Okay.
had to
So he-
choose between baseball and chess.
So he
'cause-
had the talent, and then. And,
Yeah,
But, I
he's
mean-
loved it. It's been his passion throughout his life. He's really
That's
loved it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Who was his first coach? Was it your
Oh my
husband?
gosh, no,
no.
neither of us. I didn't
I
even
see.
know how to play chess
Okay.
when he learned in kindergarten, but he just took an after-school class,
Yeah.
and he's never really had any coaching. He's taught himself
It's like
for the most
self-taught.
part.
Yeah.
I used to try to
Autodidacts.
get coaches every once in a while, but he would beat the coach, and then he would not have any patience for lessons.
And he's,
any
so,
longer.
and he's so casual. Like he'll play and draw or beat like an international master, and they'll say, "Hey, did this line? Did you prep it?" He's like, "Oh, I was just playing chess." Right?
Yeah.
He's a problem solver. He just loves
Yeah, he seems like he just
Doing
kind of like
the problem solving in his
adjust
head.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's never really studied lines, or he's never really studied openings.
yeah.
He just
plays
goes out
chess.
there and he problem
Just plays
solves.
chess.
It's just like something that comes naturally to
Yeah.
him. And
Well,
so
very cool.
yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to
How
have
old
you
is
here.
John?
He's 18, just turned
18,
18
okay.
last summer.
Yeah.
What's his rating?
I think
2120
over
or something.
2100, yeah.
Is it on is it 2100 with a bullet? Is he going up?
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
probably around 2130 or 2140 by now.
Like in the last couple of years, he's been like breaking out, like,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
having great results against strong players.
Oh
too.
yeah, when he took a break from chess, I think he was probably around 11 or 12, and he was at the 1500 level.
Mhm.
And then when he came back to it in the summer before his sophomore year, after getting injured in baseball, he actually rose up to 1900, and then 2000 and
None of us have
2100.
been injured playing chess.
That's why we love it that he's
Yeah.
playing chess.
So
As
we-
a mom, I really appreciate that.
So we've known each other for a while. It's awesome to see you back here again, see John playing, and yeah, we're excited to see him kind of rising. And actually, we'll be excited to see his last round. I'm assuming he
Yeah.
converted that result.
Well,
we'll see.
it's still going
No,
on.
they're still playing,
They're still
yeah,
playing,
so-
but it's over.
But
Right.
thanks for kind of joining us here, and then we'll see if we can get John in a little bit later.
Thank you so much
All
for
right.
having
Yeah,
me.
awesome.
Thank you so much for the analysis, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
Now I want to go see
Well, see, there's
It's
still
over.
some
Queen takes E3.
hope. Oh, queen C3. Yeah, a queen takes E3. Yeah.
Queen takes E3, it's over.
Yeah, there's a little hope left. I sadly agree because it's such a shame to having kissed away one games before. It always hurts extra. Ah, yeah. He's
So let's go back to that
Okay.
rook ending that we were talking about a little while ago. I want to show you. This was so. I think black was better in the last position we were looking at. I would prefer to have black
you prefer
here.
to have black.
I prefer to have black, and the reason is I think black's rooks are going to get more active than white's, and these pawns on A4 and C4 are quite weak. Now, having said that, I think white should be okay,
Yeah, I can
but
hold this against most people.
I think you're being optimistic about. I think black's. I would like to have black's position here, but I think white should be okay.
Yeah.
But I think rook takes rook is probably a mistake. I think probably
Yeah,
white
just
should play rook d4.
D1. Rook D4. Rook
Well, but the problem with rook d1, yeah, that probably works too. Like,
Yeah.
probably ends up being the same thing.
Probably.
Rook e4, g6.
but you got to end up on D4.
Yeah. So, but now, black.
I didn't know. I wanted my rook on D4.
Yeah,
before that,
white
to
has lost
stop that.
control of this, right?
Yeah.
F4 and rook e4.
Oh, yeah. now it's worse.
And now this is a serious
Now
problem.
you're correct about the C pawn and A pawn. It's
Yeah.
definitely weak.
And now rook d1, king f2, and of course black has rook a1 at any
rook
point.
A1 at any time.
And white can never really get his rook active, so white does the logical thing. It's interesting to me that black decided to take with the d pawn. I think there's a lot to
You
be
want
said taking with the b pawn, so you have two connected passed pawns. But he took with the d pawn.
Always against the rooks, I have found.
Rook b1.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but two connected past center pawns are like, you know, they're gonna be effective against the rook.
Yeah. So I would have another reason I would have preferred to take with the b pawn is it sort of cuts down on the activity of white's rook some. But at any rate, now what?
Yeah. I just
King e7, rook e4, king d6, and then rook f4, and we're going to have a race. And black should win this race,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a race. White's going to penetrate the rook down to f7, black's going to start taking pawns and pushing the c pawn.
Well, okay. Do we have anything else of interest that's worthy of us taking a look at? Sorry. Let's see. This is a live game, and it's a...
It's a weird
Oh,
endgame.
that's not a game. All right.
Can we go back? Actually, can you stay on that
Sure.
game for a second? I just want to see how
Which-
it got.
this game?
This one. No,
Oh, sorry.
the game you were at.
This one?
Yep. I just want to see how we got here, because last I was looking was, yeah, we were around this position. Okay. Yep. Rook f6. And yeah, I mean, the only chance here is probably rook g1. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think,
Even so, it's still...
yeah,
That's an
I think
advanced
white is,
pawn, that's-
yeah, white is
yeah.
much better. There's no question. Probably winning, but this makes no sense because the
That's
rook is so passive there.
Yeah.
Rook d8, and there's just nothing to do
You
against
can't
h7, h8.
Yeah.
Rook f5, king g4. There's nothing to do against h7, h8.
Yeah.
Nothing to do against h7, h8.
And eventually...
And there we are.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
over. Okay.
All right, so let's see. We can go back to this game, or we have one other
Sure. I
live?
mean, I assume this game is basically over now.
He didn't take on e3.
Well, it's over. I mean, black's going to go rook takes b4 or rook b2. I mean, there's just nothing here. Black has plenty of time. So
Correct.
probably rook b2 check is
Yes.
the better move. There's not
I
even,
think so.
no point in taking that pawn, right?
Right. Okay.
Um,
I agree with you. This is losing its appeal. This was our last.
This is the end game. Yeah,
this
you
is,
got to go rook f4 now.
Yep.
Um,
Or does it matter to throw in like rook g4, rook h4, rook f4? Just advance the pawns a little bit, make them easier to capture. I don't
well,
know.
he's doing it. It's I'm not sure what the point is, but
Well, just to advance the pawns so that they can capture.
right. But I think actually they're
Easy.
more vulnerable on the 7th rank. But anyway, black's going to go g6.
Okay. That's certainly possible.
Black's going to go g6, and then what? Rook h4, h5.
And then rook f4 with the threat of.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe after. No,
Oh.
that's sensible. Yeah. So
Yes.
if white can't move the
I
king
agree.
up, you got to move the king back.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. So where do you move the king? Do you go to the queen side or do you go to the king side? I'm tempted to go to the queen side. And that doesn't make much sense to me. Well, okay. I was just thinking, provoking the pawns makes it easier to generate a pass pawn for you. they are vulnerable in the seventh rank anyways. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of taking that. So does black play c4 here? Or does black play rook b4? Or does that black play h5? H5, rook f4.
Right.
Um,
So you're threatening to take with check, or check and then take. So not using an extra move.
all right, rook f4.
Clearly rook f4. I don't know what he's thinking about, because not just bang that out. You can't afford to waste time in these kinds of positions, yeah. What's going on here? Why is white's clock still moving when he's played?
No, black's turn.
Okay.
So king e6, rook f4, rook e4, excuse me.
Yeah.
King f6.
Then rook f4 again.
Yeah.
And if you run away, I go back to e5.
Yeah, but now.
Now I'm starting to get ideas about my white pawn on b5.
Yeah, that's a good move. Push the king back to f1. That's right.
Yes.
And now, do you play c4? Do you play king d5? Do you play king e6? A lot of. I mean, the practical move is king e6, just sort of to force white to do something. But I'd love to play king d5 here, actually. Just start pushing the c pawn. Yeah.
I think that's winning. Or at least.
Also, you could play
scary.
g5, by the way. Well, here we
Yeah.
go.
I just don't see.
So, I would assume king c4 here, right? Rook c7, king b3, and then just jam the c pawn down.
Sure looks strong.
All right. So now I think rook d7. No, yeah, rook d7, king e. Yeah, rook d7, king e5. Rook d7, king c5. Oh, it probably ends up basically being the same thing. I think I prefer king c4, king b3 myself. I think that's where you want the king.
Certainly stronger. Well, I mean more.
I think
to
that's
the
where.
point.
Well, I think it's where you want the king, and then you just
Yeah.
jam the pawn. But and I think white's doesn't have a lot of time. But this kind of gets you the same place, but slower. I think.
Yeah, it's a little potentially one move slower.
But whatever. King c5, rook c7, king b4. I think it's basically the same thing.
Yeah. And now he can't really threaten your b pawn. So. Yeah. He has c3, c2. Good night, Irene.
This should be over.
Well, the good news is he can't take more than a minute, 20 seconds to move. But what is White even potentially thinking of here? Rook C6? I don't know, because that doesn't work, C3. I don't know, I can't even come up with a plan for White to make it interesting.
No, it's over.
I don't even see a potential trick. Even a trap that I could set. Well, that doesn't help.
I have John here. Do you want to go over that ending sequence?
Oh yeah, sure.
Where we're going through that struggle.
Oh, sure.
Hey, congratulations on turning us around.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I got pretty lucky there.
Well, we
I thought
thought
it was
so.
just-
We thought White had an advantage that he squandered.
Bishop B3
Yeah.
looked a little funny, but it's probably okay.
I thought Bishop C4.
I thought Bishop
saved.
B3 was to play Rook A2 on Bishop
Yeah.
E1.
But I
Right.
thought,
So-
why not put it on C4 though? Because then it
Yeah.
can get back into the action. You
Yeah.
get it on G2, you're safe.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rook A2. I think we were thinking maybe Rook A6 was interesting here.
Yeah.
Rook A6. I hadn't even looked at Rook A6. I just assumed he was going to play Rook A2, but
Okay.
Rook A6 looks pretty good also.
Rook E2 is a mistake, it looks
We didn't like
right?
that.
It kind of gives you some chances. What were you
Yeah.
expecting here?
I think I was expecting like Queen E2 or something like that.
Right.
Or I don't quite remember. Something like that.
If Queen E2, Rook H8, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So okay, well, so did you have an idea? Did you have a point of view what the best move was here?
Not really. I was down to like
Yeah.
like
You
a
were just
minute,
playing whatever
so
you could.
I was just
Okay.
trying to make it difficult. I guess.
Got it. Rook F. So Queen F3.
That's a good move.
Nice. Knight D4. And did you consider Bishop F2 check here?
I saw it after I moved, and I realized I should have played that instead
Okay.
because it was probably
Well,
better. But
Maybe. But
because what happened in the game was kind of the same thing, except he had captured my pawn E4
Right.
by the time I'd taken
Right.
F2.
So Bishop F2, Rook F2, Queen E3 is kind of interesting, right? Just like it's a mess.
Yeah.
Okay. So Queen H5, Bishop C2, which was quite ballsy, if we could say that on the air.
I think so.
And then Rook H8, and this looked like it basically worked out for White until.
Yeah.
So this Knight F5 check, of course, is a blunder.
Yeah.
I think after Queen C3, it should be winning for White, right?
Yeah. I think here is just perfectly fine because his king is pretty safe and all his
Right.
pieces are good.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, did you see this trick ahead of time? The Rook H1, Rook
No.
H2? No.
No,
Well,
I didn't.
you didn't see Knight F5 check.
I-
You probably didn't.
You didn't see Knight
yeah,
F5?
Yeah.
I saw Knight F5 after I'd moved.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
was like,
funny.
I
Okay.
thought I was just lost, and then I
And
saw
then you
the
realized
H2.
you had this.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm
Very
not lost.
nice.
I'm the opposite of lost.
Very, very nice. So what do you think about the opening here? It looked like it was quite double-edged, right? So
Yeah.
let's go back like here. Did you expect C4? Like, how are you thinking about this?
I thought about
You're gonna
C4
gamble
ahead
the
of time,
pawn.
but I didn't like it after he moved C4 because I thought I had just a lot of problems. But
You think you have enough pressure here for a pawn?
Yeah.
You're not worried about
Yeah.
taking it.
Yeah. So yeah, this looked like it was pretty okay. Double A,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I was. Anyway.
But somewhere in here, like you just sort of didn't manage to get enough active play, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on what you think you should have done better here?
Well, I think Takey is
Maybe
correct.
94 was too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Because that knight was a pretty good piece.
Right, I
and
agree with that.
his knight on c3 like looks pretty good, but you know.
I agree. It's not doing that much, actually.
Yeah.
Like you could even imagine, like maneuvering your knight to d6 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like put the pawn on a6, play knight b7, d6, and hang out that way. Also, by the way, you might just take that knight on c3, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your bishop on g7 actually ends up being like passive, just sort of hits air, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you could just take the knight on c3, and then you could either play knight e4, or you could play, you maneuver your knight around, or something like to d6, I mean, or something like that. Yeah, I agree. Knight e4 looks to me like you've got to figure out how to like surround that pawn on d5 quickly in order to make this work.
Yeah, and there wasn't really a way to do that, I
Right.
thought. So.
Right, yeah. Yep. Yes, this position actually, you're kind of slow to generate play on the king side, although you did in the end. And yeah, this looks pretty comfortable for white, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you figured you were worse here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we thought queen f6 was an interesting move. What was your thinking around bishop takes pawn or rook takes pawn?
Bishop takes pawn, queen takes b7, bishop takes a5, knight takes a5, and
Queen a3.
Queen a3.
It's not so
but-
comfortable.
Can he just play bishop c4 there?
Yeah, and so queen c1 check, king g2. Or maybe instead of queen c1 check, maybe queen c3 to hit the knight on a5.
And the bishop's on c4.
Yeah. So white's got to defend it with the queen.
Yeah.
Queen c7, or I guess queen b5 hits the rook on
Yeah.
e8.
Mm-hmm.
But then rook a8, and the knight
Knight
gets,
c6.
and then a3.
It's starting to run.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting, right? It's messy.
Yeah.
It's
messy.
messy. Okay, so that was one. I mean, we don't know what's going on
Right.
there, but that's possible.
And could he just sack his bishop for that a pawn if he has to, because he still has the pawn on d5, right?
For sure.
And the knight on c3.
Yeah,
Knight
we,
c6.
we thought also you could just play
So
rook
this,
takes a4.
the idea here, of course, is queen b7, bishop e1, and h4, right? And now we're in that.
That's where I
sequence we're looking
would have
at.
preferred bishop c4. Seems to me that gets the bishop back to defend the king and covers all the white squares. Which he desperately tried to do with bishop takes c4, but
Maybe bishop c4, hg, bishop e1. It's a little slow because you still haven't gotten the king to g7. Yeah.
right. So I think you get the bishop to g2 and you hold everything. The rook comes to a2 to guard f2. Now this self traps the king.
Yeah, but this is very funny. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so
Good job.
going for it in the last round, right?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
you are.
Well, good
yes,
luck.
you are.
Congratulations.
The best way to make a draw is to win.
All right. They're all done.
Thank you so much.
All right, should we take a couple-minute break?
I think it's indicated.
All the games
Yeah.
are done. All right, so we'll take a break and be back when the action starts again.
Alrighty then. Okay.